Daniels. Let's bring in trial attorney Bryan Rotella. So, Bryan, of course, the focus will be on character. How will defense methodically mar Michael Cohen's trustworthiness?
Well, first of all, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, Belle. And this summer blockbuster season, in my opinion, came early with what we saw last week from Stormy Daniels. I think that's going to continue and get pushed up a notch in this coming week with Michael Cohen's testimony. The prosecutors have to treat Cohen's testimony similar to almost like a mafia type case. And what I mean by that is, think about the way Sammy Gravano, who's a former informant to the mob against John Gotti. What they're going to try to do is say that Michael Cohen, because all this stuff has come out about him being a liar, perjuring, they're going to say that he is a chronic liar, that he is somebody that was lying, though, at behest and at the direction of his boss, Donald Trump. And that included when he did ultimately what they're saying the crime is here, which is he paid for the payoff to Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet for the sexual encounter she's alleging that happened with the president, and that the president, former president, directed him to make it legal fees paid to him, not simply a non-disclosure agreement or settlement agreement, Arthel, that would have said Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels, because if that had gotten out before the 2016 election, what the prosecutor is saying in their whole case is that would have ultimately changed the election, and that's where the fraud is.
So that's how you're saying that prosecution is going to paint Michael Cohen, the guy who would figuratively take a bullet for Mr. Trump. So what about defense? How are they going to cross?
Yeah, exactly. So the prosecution is going to set him up as this informant who's flipped. Now what the defense is going to have to do is say, similarly, again, I hate to go back to it, but almost like a mafia type trial, they're going to say you can't trust anything that this guy has said. I mean, just the other night, he was out on TikTok wearing a shirt, selling shirts that had the former president wearing orange behind bars on this Mea Culpa website. He's been convicted of crimes, including crimes of perjury. They're going to be telling
But now, wait a minute, because, that's what they're going to say, though he's been convicted of those crimes because he was covering up for the former president.
Oh, I agree, Arthel. I don't know that it's going to be overly effective because going back to what I think the prosecution is going to, and they've already laid out, including with witnesses like Keith Davidson, the attorney that was the one who was ultimately negotiating this. I think it's going to be a hard strategy for the defense looking at it from a cross-examination perspective, because it's all out there that Michael Cohen is just not a trustworthy guy. And ultimately what the prosecution is going to be saying is, yeah, he's not trustworthy. But that's in part why he was willing to do this lie, saying, yes, I paid, these were legal fees paid to me, and not ultimately a payoff made in a version of a settlement agreement, which would not have been illegal because then it would have been open for the public to see.
So, Bryan, in terms of tone and tenor in the line of questioning on both sides, are there potential risks as it would play with jurors?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's been risks all over, Arthel. I think Stormy Daniels' testimony last week sounded more like a Harvey Weinstein type of situation. I think that testimony very well may set up for an appeal that could be successful if there's a verdict against the former president. I think this week, let's go back to the civil fraud case that we had just a few months ago. Michael Cohen testified there, and Arthel, when he was cross-examined by the former president's lawyer, he was objecting from the witness stand. He's a disbarred lawyer. This thing is a pop the popcorn type of week that's going to be coming up. And candidly, at the end of this, I think the prosecution is going to have to say, yes, he is a very faulted witness. He is a liar. He is a flipped informant. But that's why you need to believe the fact that he would have done this for his former boss, which is ultimately the crime they're trying to prove.
Okay, so, we're going to talk about the man himself. I mean, he's a lawyer. He's smart. He's articulate. So let's go, in what ways will he be strong witness for prosecution? His testimony, what he might say, and then how could he inadvertently be a strong witness for defense, since prosecution, he's their witness?
It's a great question, Arthel, because from a prosecution standpoint, if he were my witness, Michael, please be empathetic, be remorseful, be that witness who says, I really am looking back on this. I've had this moment in time where I wish I had not made all these lies. I wish I had not helped this person who was my former boss. And that ultimately the reason he's testifying now about all of this is he's trying to, at least in his opinion, save the American people or whatever he's going to say. He's going to have to come across empathetic and remorseful. On the defense side, that could certainly flip backwards when this guy, Michael Cohen, was out on TikTok, like I said, just a few days ago, selling shirts with the former president, the defendant in this case, behind bars. So you're going to have really two different narratives going on. I have to tell you, Arthel, it's fascinating for a case that's really all about financial records fraud.
And as much as, Michael Cohen, he's an attorney, as we said, he's going to try to be measured, but there's got to be so much emotion involved here. So he would have to, I'd imagine, and you tell me, but he would have to control, show some emotion so he can come across as a human being and not a robot, but not get too emotional as to where he, would really discredit himself because he's just out to get the former president.
That's the tap dance, Arthel. That is what Michael Cohen's got to get himself through, which I think will be 3, maybe 4 days of testimony this week, is he has got to keep his cool in that empathetic and remorseful way. But he also needs to be indignant on cross-examination in a way where he's saying, yes, I have lied before. He needs to be able to say that. I've lied. I have made mistakes in the past, but I'm saying this now because I worked for this person before. I lied on his behalf. And I have to come clean ultimately for what he's saying and the prosecution's saying for the American people. Now, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, that's a different story.
Well, it's definitely going to be fascinating to watch this tomorrow and however many days Michael Cohen will be on the stand. But for now, we say thank you to you, Mr. Bryan Rotella, trial attorney. Thank you very much for joining us.
It was my pleasure, Arthel.